What happens to a lifetime of work when a physician in North Carolina can no longer practice or passes away unexpectedly? For most doctors, the answer is uncomfortable. Because building a medical practice is one thing, but transferring it correctly is something entirely different. And without structured planning, even a highly successful practice can lose value almost immediately. Why trusts matter for physicians? Most physicians don't just build income, they build an entire professional ecosystem. Clinic operations, staff, patient relationships, reputation, and often real estate. But in North Carolina, there's a key structural rule many overlook. Under professional entity law, only licensed physicians can own a medical practice. That means your spouse, children, or heirs may not be able to directly inherit it, even if it represents your life's work. So the real issue becomes, how do you transfer value when you cannot directly transfer the practice itself? This is where trust planning becomes essential. Now, what a trust actually does here? A trust is a legal structure where a trustee manages assets for beneficiaries under defined rules. But for physicians, clarity matters. A trust typically does not own the medical practice itself. Instead, it manages the financial structure around it. For example, a physician in Raleigh may place their medical office building into a trust so rental income continues to their family. A physician in Charlotte may use a trust to hold life insurance, creating liquidity if a buyout is needed after death. A Durham practice owner may structure a trust to receive proceeds from a partner buyout. So the trust doesn't replace the practice, it protects everything connected to it. And importantly, trusts also provide privacy because unlike probate filings, trust terms are generally not public record. The question is whether revocable or irrevocable trusts. For physicians, this distinction is critical. A revocable trust is flexible. It can be changed during your lifetime. It is primarily used for avoiding probate, simplifying inheritance, and maintaining privacy. But there's a limitation. Because you still control the assets, a revocable trust generally does not protect against malpractice claims or creditors. It is an estate planning tool, not an asset protection shield. An irrevocable trust is different. Once created and funded, it cannot be easily changed. In exchange for reduced control, it may provide stronger asset protection, potential estate tax reduction, and separation from personal liability. For example, physicians with significant investments or rental properties may use irrevocable trusts to reduce exposure to personal liability risks. But it requires intentional design and long-term commitment. Why medical practice succession is unique. Unlike most businesses, a medical practice cannot simply be handed down. In North Carolina, non-physicians generally cannot own a practice. Ownership must transfer to a licensed physician or be handled through structured buyouts or liquidation. So in reality, most practices after death are sold to another physician group, transitioned through partnership agreements, or liquidated in an orderly process. This is why trusts are often paired with buy-sell agreements, life insurance funding strategies, succession contracts. For example, a physician in Greensboro may fund a buy-sell agreement with life insurance held in a trust, so their family receives cash, not legal complexity at death. At the federal level in 2026, the estate tax exemption remains high and inflation adjusted under current law. However, many physicians still cross taxable estate thresholds when combining practice valuation, medical real estate, retirement accounts, and life insurance proceeds. North Carolina does not impose a separate estate tax, but federal exposure still matters for high-income professionals. Trusts help in two key ways: reducing probate exposure, improving liquidity, and estate coordination, but only if properly funded and aligned with business agreements. Here are common mistakes physicians make. Even well-advised doctors make predictable errors. Creating a trust but never funding it. Trying to place practice ownership into a trust incorrectly. Missing proper valuation of the practice. Failing to coordinate with buy-sell agreements. Using generic templates not designed for medical professionals. Not updating plans after major life or practice changes. Each of these can lead to delays, tax issues, or forced liquidation of value. What's the strategic big picture? Trust planning for physicians is not just legal paperwork. It is coordination between medical licensing law, business structure, tax planning, and family inheritance goals. A trust alone does not preserve a medical legacy, but a coordinated system does. Because for most physicians, the goal isn't just building wealth. It's making sure decades of work don't get lost in transition. Because in the end, the hardest part of building a medical practice isn't growth. It's making sure the legacy survives the transition.